Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. We'll allow a few more people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And I see we have a number of folks joining us today. Again, just a minute more, and then we'll get started with our presentation. Thank you. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining our webinar today. We welcome all of you who are attending for our presentation on improving business analytics with high fidelity mobility data. We're glad that you decided to join us today. We think you'll find it a very interesting and informative presentation about how to use mobility data and to improve business analytics. So let me go ahead and introduce our panelists today. I'm Joe Francica. I'm the Senior Director of Geospatial Strategy at CREM, and I'm happy to be joined by Ryan Chang. He's the Director of Enterprise Customer Success at Foursquare, as well as Julien Lebron. He's a geospatial expert, one of my colleagues at CREM. So we're glad that you'll be spending an hour with us. I'm sure you'll find the information extremely informative. And Ryan is going to walk us through some of the details about the data products at Foursquare and why Foursquare and CREM have joined in partnership. So Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. Nice to meet everyone. So excited to tell you all a little bit more about Foursquare. So Foursquare is today's leading independent location-based platform. Location really is at the center of everything we do. Right here at Foursquare, we have a deep understanding around location, how people move, how they interact with physical locations, and how those trends might change over time. We leverage these insights to help brands, developers, marketers, and analysts better understand and engage with their own consumers. You may not know this, but you've probably actually been interacting with Foursquare for many years. If you ever typed in a venue in Uber, that data comes directly from Foursquare. If you've geotagged a tweet or added a geofilter in Snapchat, that all is powered by Foursquare data as well. Next slide. But location really is not easy, right? So the common misconception is that GPS data is perfect, when in reality can be quite noisy and difficult to make sense of. If you've ever been in downtown Manhattan or any kind of downtown urban neighborhood and opened up even Google Maps, you may notice that the little blue dot will keep shifting around, unsure of where you are or which direction sometimes you need to head. It's really not as simple as taking points from the phone and placing them into polygons or locations. Often pings from your device can range from 5 meters to 100 meters away from where you truly are. Even a 25-meter difference can put the signals from your phone at a completely different place. Devices don't see the world in neatly drawn 2D shapes. Rather, the pings themselves can drift quite a bit depending on the density of the area, the materials of the building, even the surface area and where you place windows, along with a bunch of other factors. Where Foursquare is uniquely positioned is that we sit on close to 14 billion first-party check-ins accumulated over the past 10 years. We leverage these check-ins to see what are the common drift patterns of device pings for folks we know have visited location. In this way, we're able to create more accurate visits using what we consider the phone's eye view of the world. No one else besides Foursquare is able to approach the problem this way, and this is all possible due to the technology we developed with Pilgrim. Next slide. Pilgrim really is the engine that combines that phone's eye view with a unique place thumbprint, which then is trained by the more than 14 billion times someone has told us firsthand that, hey, I'm here. So what do we actually provide for our customers? Well, Foursquare offers a global point of interest data set, which captures both firmographic details, so things like venue name, addresses, coordinates. But we also capture a ton of rich content, such as photos, reviews, and tips. Today, we have over 100 million points of interest globally, spanning over 200 countries and over 900 different venue categories. We're also able to provide an understanding of visitation trends to many of these locations. In the US, we see over 3 billion monthly visits with coverage across 10,000 plus chains and a significant portion of the long tail of businesses as well. If it isn't obvious, Foursquare provides a lot of data, right? So not everyone has the capacity or the appetite to work with this much data alone, which is why we're incredibly fortunate to be partnering with Carem. We've been approached by many folks in the past, but Carem is Foursquare's first partner who we decide is best positioned to distribute our data as a value-added reseller. This is mostly because Carem is not just a reseller, right? They are experts in how to work with spatial data like ours and can even provide custom cuts to the data in a way that we don't offer out of the box. This means not only can they provide folks with access to the data, but they can be true partners to help our shared customers unlock the most value from their investments. This helps us stay laser focused on developing awesome data products, while Carem can help tailor the data for your specific needs. I'll pass it back to Joe, who I'm sure can paint you a better picture than I can.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. So Carem's value proposition is quite simply comprised of the geospatial expertise that your company may be missing. You know, what companies fail to recognize is they really have a desperate need for location data, but don't necessarily understand the complexity and thus its true value. So our expertise in geospatial technology is really supported by about 27 years of developing solutions for clients such as Royal Dutch Shell and AT&T, and they require the use of location-based data and technology to provide them with insights that they expect will give them a competitive advantage. So what's preventing companies from really taking that first step in investment to become more location intelligent? Well, we believe it's this inability to identify the best technology as well as the best data that can get you what you need and get you an answer. And that's why we've partnered with Foursquare, because we believe they have the best data in some of this high fidelity mobile data. What you see here on the screen really summarizes some of the areas of excellence that we think we really strive to provide to our clients, all the way from data integration to geocoding to location analytics and visualization, then finally enterprise applications. As Ryan mentioned, we are a value-added reseller of Foursquare data and also a data integration provider, which means that if you've got a need for more customized data, then that is really what we do, and we help you integrate that into your mainstream enterprise IT solutions. So taking location analytics to a new level, well, let's find out really what that means. The first question we really try to strive to answer is capturing these patterns of mobility data, these shifting patterns of pedestrian footfall data by day and time. We're going to demonstrate that in very shortly with Julien, but it's this ability to capture ground truth. You know, what was the observable pedestrian foot traffic, not just yesterday, but by what hour, what time of day? Maybe something happened last week or last month. What's the velocity of movement on the ground? And is our brand attracting customers? Why or why not? The mobility data that shows a decrease in foot traffic could indicate that there's something else going on. Maybe there's a closure. These patterns can detect whether there's a temporary closure or whether it's a permanent closure. So why is this important? Well, it's because mobile advertising has increased due to COVID. You know, we all carry around mobile devices. We're now using those mobile devices for e-commerce, for mobile payments, and of course, for social networking. The information that can be discerned is identifying changes to the demography that really impacts consumer spending. If the highest and best use of real estate has changed because the customer profile has also changed, then it's either time to close or relocate or maybe build something new at that particular location. So to summarize, you know, mobility data can really identify and craft new audience profiles, thus providing the ability to successfully segment and target the right customer with information and advertising. So how accurate can we get? Well, as the example shows here, and I'm going to point your attention to the map on the left, the map really identifies these higher volume of sales at a specific location, and those are indicated by red. But the map may show not just a stagnant period such as a week of sales or a month of sales, but really daily and hourly changes. And the chart on the right shows dwell time as a function of day and time. So this ability to slice through periods of high and low pedestrian traffic as it relates to daily and hourly sales really provides a more dynamic understanding, and by extension, the ability to merchandise better and to accommodate consumer traffic and brand preferences. So let's go to our first poll. So if we can, we'd like to know, how are you currently using location analytics today? Is it for site selection? Is it by sales analysis, by store design? Is it using this for customer segmentation and profiling? Perhaps it's also being used for a competitive advantage, or whether it's all of the above. So just provide us some insight as to how you're using location analytics today. We know we've got a mixture of businesses and industries on our webinar, and everybody may use location data slightly differently. But we'd really like to get your input, as it will help us maybe to address some of the questions at the end. And I do want to remind you that if you do have specific questions during our presentation, please enter them into the chat window, and we'll be able to address those towards the end of the presentation. So let's close the poll now, and we'll continue with our presentation. All right, now we're going to go on to our demo. I'm going to introduce once again Julien Lebrun. He's going to take us through a demo of using Foursquare data. Julien, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. All right, perfect. So here we have the Boston area loaded with the places dataset from Foursquare. So as you can see, it's a colorful artwork of a bunch of places and business points all around the Boston area, where each color that you can see here represents a venue's primary category. So you have very detailed categorization of venues, so you can filter and find locations, businesses based on these categories. The size of the points represents the popularity score, which is another attribute from the places dataset that is a score from 0 to 1, where places that would have 1 indicates that it is the most popular in a certain geographic area over the past 6 months foot traffic. So right away with the places dataset, you have access to insights on how popular a place is, and you can evaluate it like this. So there's over 100 different attributes with the places datasets. You can filter and look for specific chains, but particularly one of my favorite one when we're talking about retail or real estate is the neighborhood attributes, which is an indication of the neighborhood. So it's provided as an attribute, so you don't have to leverage external data sets or secondary data sets or to do any kind of spatial operations. You can use it to filter data and give it much more meaningful insights. Neighborhood will translate how people experience a place rather than provide administrative boundaries, which might not reflect exactly the value of an area. So these are all built into the places datasets. But let's say that you want to go deeper and maybe have insights on who are visiting your stores. So this is the visits dataset. So visits are aggregated to all places in the datasets. And what it gives you is different information on demographics, home zip codes, and the time of the visits and how long they visited. So here we're still in the Boston area, but now we have loaded only the coffee shop, so a very specific category. Here at the bottom left, you can see actually the market share or the distribution of visits that occurred across different coffee shop chains. So as you can see here, Starbucks is the most popular with close to 56% of all visits. And you can have insights on who your customers are, and not only for your locations, but also for your competitors' locations. So you can really have meaningful insights on who is visiting your stores and check if the people that you are targeting are actually the one that visit your stores. So demographics are broken down by gender and age group. So you can simply select a specific age group and have a view of which locations are they visiting, what are their chain preferences, and where do they live. Similarly, we can select a specific location like this one. Let's say that we choose the Cafe Nero location on 10 Summer Street in downtown Boston. So again, we can have and see the breakdown of their demographics, find out who the most popular segments or age group is. And we can see here at the bottom that they do have lots of customers coming from the 02124 zip code. So if we take a step back and have a look at the profile of this specific zip code, we can see that unlike the whole Boston area, this specific zip code, the most popular chain here is Cafe Nero, and Starbucks comes in second at only 23%. So you can really have precise insights at the zip code level over visitation, over category or specific chains. It's really, there's lots of use cases for analysis. Another way to look at it would be looking at visitation trends. So at the top right corner here, you have popular hours by days of the week. So you can figure out which hours do people are visiting your stores. You can put out marketing campaigns or promotions to try attract people on maybe less busy days, or figure out the reasons why people might not be visiting your location at a specific time of the day. Another important metric for the visits data, is the dwell time. So here you have the amount of time that people spend in a certain location or for a visit. So this is very important because when we're talking about real estate or retail, the more time people spend in store, the more they are likely to purchase, especially when we're talking about coffee shops. So again, it allows you powerful analysis to maybe look into your locations and find out why maybe a certain location isn't visited as long as the others. So maybe the amenities are not on par with those of similar locations in the neighborhood. Maybe you don't have enough seating area. It really gives you the ability to look at problems or your locations in lots of different ways. And then again, we can see trends over time. So as you know, COVID did impact a lot the visitation trends in lots of different business areas. So here we can see in blue visits across all coffee shop locations, and then in green you have visits to this specific location, so the location on 10 Summer Street. So as you can see, it experienced a decrease in visits while other coffee shops did see an increase. So you can maybe go ahead and dive a bit deeper to find out why did you see this trend at a location. And lastly, let's look at, this very location, 10 Summer Street. It allows you to compute time series and trends over time. So here we have the year-to-date visits. So how do visits compare for specific months relative to the month of January? So as you can see in red, and this is something we've done with spatial analysis using the Foursquare data. So we looked at in red all coffee shops or all POIs that are identified as coffee shops. In blue, you have all points of interest or business points within the trade area. And then in green, you have this very specific location. So you can benchmark and compare one location against a category or against the full traffic registered in an area. So as you can see, this very location saw a decrease in traffic up until March before picking up more traffic until May, where it reached the rest of the categories relative to January. And then here, similarly, you have the month-over-month trend. So you can see how do months compare from one another. Did you see more or less visits, and compare it across different categories to see if you're maybe losing business to a competitor or to other locations, or if it's simply a natural decrease in visitation in a given area. And for these locations, we also found out all the other competitors, so all the other coffee shops within the trade area, and we applied them. We looked at their SAG score, so the normalized visitation score, and we also calculated a Z-score, so just standardize this to see how do they compare and how do they, so which location is the most popular compared to another. So again, 10 Summer Street is the most popular venue within that category. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways to play around the places and the visits data and look at it in many different ways. Now I'll take it back to you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. That was a great presentation. We're going to go to our second poll now, and if you would just give us an idea whether you're currently using mobile footfall data to support location analytics. Just a very simple question, whether yes or no, or planning to use in the future. Hopefully, what you saw in the demonstration is really a pretty in-depth understanding of how how the mobility data can be used and at specific locations, certainly by time of day or day of week, and how you can slice through the data, as I mentioned before. So we know that it's a relatively new data type for some of you. Maybe you're just exploring the use of it now, and we'd certainly like to know whether you're planning to use it in the future if you're not doing it today. So let's take a look at the results. If just maybe a minute more to let everybody choose an answer, but let's maybe have a look at the results. Okay. All right, well, let's talk about a new way forward. And it's something that, I want to discuss specifically about what we can do at Carême. We have a lot of folks who have trusted us with their solutions. You can see some relatively large organizations that we've worked with in the past. And there's a good reason why they've come to us, and I want to share that with you here. These are the areas in which we try to support our clients today, and it starts with strategic consulting. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is helping customers get to an answer. So in geospatial technology, there's an awful lot of data types, and there's an awful lot of different solutions that are available. And the place to start is what we call with a health check, and that's just giving you an understanding of where you are today, whether you've purchased something already or whether you're trying to integrate multiple GIS solutions or multiple sets of geospatial data. We kind of help you kind of break down exactly where you are and give you kind of a level set of maybe where you want to go in the future. Part of that understanding is contract advisory, and what this essentially means is that as you get into buying more and more data, there are certain terms and conditions that are necessary for you to consider. And that gets somewhat complicated, especially as you're dealing with multiple data vendors. So we do things like contract negotiation and quote comparison to make sure you're getting the best price. Then that middle piece there is outsourcing and enablement. That could be benchmarking and prototyping different geospatial and geocoding solutions. if geocoding is a central part of what you're doing with customer information, there are a lot of different geocoders out there, and we can help you benchmark that and get the right solution in place. And then there are things like spatial data science. This is the creation of data models, and in particular using location-based data for things like site selection and target marketing. Not a lot of organizations know how to utilize spatial data, in particular how to create a spatial model, but that's something that we're capable of doing. We mentioned at the very beginning systems integration and data integration. This will be custom cuts of data. Maybe you need data only for a specific geographic region. That's something that we can do, or it's just simply data integration, making certain that all of the data is in the right place and that you're able to start up your location analytics project. And then the last one is managed services. This is really where a lot of companies are now deploying cloud native solutions. Maybe there's a need because of the high velocity of data that's coming in from a variety of different mobile devices, that they're realizing that they've got a big data problem. So this is where solutions like Databricks and Snowflake come into play, and how those individual platforms can be geospatially enabled today. That's something we have some expertise on. That's something that we're helping our clients today, in particular in the insurance and the telecommunications field, that we're really helping to improve their operations and do that kind of data integration. So just to summarize, everything from just basic consulting and taking an agnostic approach. We're resellers certainly of certain data, in particular Foursquare data, but we also take an agnostic approach to help you get the best advantage of geospatial technology. Okay, I think we're going to move into some questions, and we've got a number of questions that have come in at this point. So let me go to our first series of questions, and I'm just bringing them up now. So one of the questions that came in is, what are verticals? What are some of the other verticals that Foursquare data can be used for, and how? Ryan, maybe you could take that question.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've been in customer success for a while, and I think part of the fun of being in customer success at a company like Foursquare is really how many different verticals and types of customers you get to work with on a day-to-day basis. So I think some of the things that we discussed today, within site selection, there's retail, there's financial services, we work with some major brands. Really, if there's, a use case for understanding location, we probably work with a customer kind of within that space. But Joe, curious, for your clients as well, are you noticing any industry concentrations, or what does that look like for you all?
Yeah, I think we're seeing similar things. I think that the retail space is certainly one which I think are taking more advantage perhaps than others. I think, as we've mentioned, the situation with COVID, the situation with e-commerce, that's created a great deal of demographic movement. We all want to know if people are coming back into downtown areas and central business districts, and I think that that's where some of the mobility data really helps us to identify some of these issues. Another question is, do you have visits for venues inside larger buildings, for example, shopping inside a mall, something like that, or commercial parks?
Yes, we do. So it's a much tougher challenge, right? And so even when you think about creating visits for dense areas versus rural areas, the closer buildings are together and the more there's things on top of each other, it just becomes a tougher puzzle to solve. I think we are relatively uniquely positioned to capture kind of the in-store or in-center problem, right? Just because we do have so many check-ins that we sit on, right? So again, we have over 14 billion times that someone flagged that they're at a specific location. What we can then do is see, like, what do the actual pings and patterns look like when somebody has flagged themselves as being within a store. So that's how we attempt to solve it, is we try to take a look to see, are there other clusters of pings that mirror what it looks like when someone has firsthand kind of raised their hand and said, hey, I'm in this Target, or I'm in this nail salon, or something like that.
Right. This question came in, it asks, is it possible to correlate the footprint of these stores zip codes and arrive at a causation for sales, or are there cases where this may not pan out? I don't know, Ryan or Julian?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's very interesting questions, and we do have customers that do similar things. It can definitely be used to be correlated with in-store sales if you have data for your own locations and figure out trends. Obviously, there's some scales that might not be feasible, but when we're looking at zip codes or at chains or categories, there's definitely some very interesting insights that we have been able to pull out using the visitation data. So yes, it can be correlated with in-store sales to be utilized within your own modeling for forecasting for let's say that you're opening a new location. It's something also that can be used.
Thanks, Julian. We have another question come in, and this is for the little blue dot problem. How does Foursquare estimate with high fidelity the boundaries of different stores? Seems like it can only be done manually.
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think slightly related to the question around how do we do kind of in-store or in-center visits. When we think about the phone's eye view of the world, right, what that means is, again, we take a look at first-party data, which is check-in. So if somebody goes to a Target location and flags I'm here, right, and we see a million other folks who've also done the same thing over the years, we can get a sense for where those pings within this target typically appear. And so there might be some in the target, there might be some across the street, right? There might be some left or right of the location, but they generally follow kind of a similar nebulous shape. So over time, we can start to infer, even if someone has not checked in, if their phone footprint or if that, kind of ping footprint resembles very closely what we know to be the footprint of folks who, again, over millions of times have told us they're in the target. That's how we can do it at scale. So that helps us avoid having to do it manually. That also avoids us having to look at even what the kind of boundaries are of the physical building, just because, as mentioned, the phone doesn't really behave neatly in that way. So we kind of look at the problem slightly differently.
Okay, great. We've got time for one last question. It's a little bit of a long question. Let me see if I can get it all out. So we have, let's see, I'm representing a cloud kitchen brand. We have partners who are subject matter experts in restaurants that are not data literate. Is it possible to provide insights to them in as easy terms as opposed to even a Tableau dashboard, which could seem overwhelming to a small business owner? That's a really good question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Oh, so I think this is where Krem, probably really shines, right? Is be able to tell complex stories through data. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the data itself is obviously can seem challenging from a technical standpoint, especially for non-technical person. But yes, any kind of insights derived from this data, this is something that our professional services team that can do. So here it was sort of in the form of Tableau dashboard, but it could be presented in various other ways depending on your specific needs and the type of audience that you are talking to. So whatever the kind of insights that you want to look at, this is definitely something that we can help and deliver from the Foursquare data.
Great. Any other comments, Ryan?
No.
Okay, great. So that's all the time we have for today. We really appreciate everybody asking these questions. They're great questions, and I hope that you got some great information from the webinar today. Any questions that we did not get to, we'll certainly follow up directly with you by email. Certainly, you could also write to us directly, as you see there on the screen, our contact information. We'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. I know we went over a lot of very detailed information. We hope that we presented in a manner that's more exemplary and hopefully easier to understand, but we know that this can be challenging for some of our clients. I want to thank Foursquare for joining us today on the webinar. Really appreciate their partnership. And again, we hope you had a great time providing. I hope you had a good understanding of what we're trying to provide here, and we hope to see you on another webinar in the future. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next time.